Hey, and welcome back to Industry Night with me, NycciNellis, the show that takes you on the deep dive of the happenings in the food, wine, and hospitality scene. So if you're new here, hi, thanks for joining us. We are in the gorgeous Wine Lair, a private wine club right next to the Ritz-Carlton Hotel in downtown DC. It's not related though. And if you haven't been, then you need to step in because they have not only this gorgeous PDR, private dining room, but also a beautiful place to keep all your wines and spirits. They do tons of events here, so follow them at Wine Lair on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and all the things. And of course, you want to follow me at NycciNellis, Instagram, Facebook, Threads, Twitter, X, whatever it's called these days, LinkedIn, and of course, you want to subscribe to YouTube because this show now airs on YouTube. So a little bit about me, if it's your first time here, thelistareyouwantit.com is an online e-zine I started 20 years ago. It gives you the 411 of everything happening in the DC food, wine, and hospitality industry, all the events, every promotion, everything happening, it's all in there and it's free. Also, you follow me on social. I just gave you the handle. Foodie and the Beast, it airs every Sunday, 15 years in October. We are the only food and wine variety show still happening in DC on radio, of course, downloadable as a podcast. You're checking out Industry Night right now. You're following me on social. Of course, you hear me on WTOP, and I'm doing a lot of television these days. Stay tuned because you'll hear more about all of that. Okay. So if you don't subscribe to all my things, please do. And if you have been following me on social, then you see girl has been eating an awful lot and drinking a bit as well. So first and foremost, I got to see what Ruben Garcia is doing with his Casa Teresa, Casa Teresa is going to be opening up in the very much excited for the Square, which is going to be down on 19th and K. He and Richie Brandenburg, you remember him from Union Market, they're going to be opening up this beautiful food hall, and Casa Teresa is going to be the gem of the restaurant in there. So I went to a pop-up of it. It was at Apero, which is one of my favorite little champagne and caviar bars. Elli Benchimol poured gorgeous wines throughout the night to really punctuate the food that Ruben is serving. Gorgeous, gorgeous, melt in your mouth, jamón, beautiful Valencia style cuisine throughout the evening. If you don't know Ruben, you should. He used to be with Jose Andres, and I think everybody in the DC food, wine, and hospitality scene is eagerly awaiting the opening of this restaurant. Okay, next, I went to Philippe Chow. Now, for those of you in the area who know who Philippe Chow is, you may roll your eyes a bit because you're kind of like, really? Is it any good? And I kind of went in like that, which I'll be very honest about. It's at the Wharf. It is splashy. It is dashy. It is fabulous. There's a DJ. Everybody is dressed. It looks good. The food is excellent. I mean, surprisingly excellent. And I know that sounds so jaded, but come on, I've got a chef here. He knows what I'm talking about. Chef Chow was there. I actually got to meet him, which was lovely. The Peking duck was delicious. The dumplings are amazing. Our server was terrific. I can't wait to go back. I'm so impressed by the food. Oh, and the dessert. You're going to see everybody getting it because it's such a glittery show. But it is this big mound of, what's it called? Cotton candy. A big, huge mound, like bigger than me, like a big mound of cotton candy. And they come around with it, and then they drizzle it with very hot liquor, and they light it on fire, and it all flips up. And then underneath is this little mound of chocolate pastry that they cut up for the table. Again, flashy and dashy. Is it any good? It is. It's delicious. So check out there. I did go back to Salt Line at Bethesda because it's in my backyard. I'll try not to bore you all with it because I'm going to be there often. The Raw Bar is amazing. Kyle Bailey and his team are just executing it so well. The restaurant is only 6 weeks old. They are so busy. Oh, and a little pro tip. So if you're a lobster roll fan like I am, but you don't always want to eat all the bread because you're going to eat all the fries, they will put it in a gorgeous boat of lettuce. So that's what I do, and now you can too. You can call the Nycci. They'll know what you're talking about. Lastly, back in the spring, I had Corey Van Horn from Visit Montgomery County here on the show with a bunch of people from Visit Montgomery County, because they have this amazing agritourism in their agricultural reserve. We learned all about that on this show. So Corey invited me, I have to read this because it's called the Mid-Atlantic Tourism Public Relations Alliance. They did a huge event here over the last 3 days, and I met all these people from counties all over the Mid-Atlantic. And there are so many amazing restaurants, incredible hotels, terrific experiences, museums. There is so much within a 5-hour period around the DC metro area to do. And I'm going to get to share a lot of that with you based on these relationships. But they did take us out to the Comus Inn, which is in the Ag Reserve, this gorgeous little inn, not to stay in, but to kind of hang out in. Beautiful outdoor space. There was this great little barn overlooking the mountains. The barn looked super rustic. I did not think it was going to be cute inside. Totally wrong once again. So chic. Inside, beautifully decorated, and they were pouring, what was the name of the vineyard? Wine Ridge wines from Maryland. So don't scrunch your nose at that. The rosé is delicious, and so I kind of hung in there all night. Oh, and lastly, when we left, they opened up their ice cream window, which they have at the front of the Comus Inn, and they are serving incredible soft serve and also Smith Island cake, which I'm a real fan of Smith Island cake. I took 2 pieces home. Okay. So lots of delicious things to do. Check out the list areyouwantit.com. Don't forget to see what's happening and follow my Insta so you can see all the things. But now we're going to get on to today's show. Okay, so if you grew up in the 70s, your mother probably told you to clean your plate because there were children starving in Africa. It was true. But what your mom should have said, and better yet, what we know now, is millions of pounds of food wind up in landfills every year. In 2019, in the United States, 229 million tons of food went unsold or were uneaten. Now, here's what's scary about that statistic. This statistic. According to the USDA, more than 34 million people, including 9 million children, in this country are food insecure. We have the food. It's just not getting into the people's bellies. Enter Food Rescue. Now, you may remember I brought Kate Urbank and Colleen Gillespie on Industry Night last year to talk about this web-based app that engages volunteers. I'm reading it because I want to get all of it. Volunteers to transfer fresh food surpluses from local businesses to social service agencies that and they're getting it to be food insecure. So they continue to grow. They're doing so many things. What started as this little organization here, thanks to Kate and then the addition of Colleen, is just growing and growing. So I brought them both here with me today to reacquaint you with the program, talk about that growth, and then to talk about their new Family Meal for Migrants program. So they brought with them Alex Olivier, who is with the Migrant Solidarity Mutual Aid. Correct, absolutely. Okay, great. He's here today to talk about what he's doing and how he's working in this program. And then I've got good old friend here, Matt Adler, who, if this was a show of another kind, I would introduce him first because he's kind of special. But he does terrific work with them. He works with Jose Andres and World Central Kitchen. You can find him right now at Caruso's. But I love that he's a part of Food Rescue in any way, shape, or form. So we're going to talk about how all the different people can work within this. So, Kate, thank you so much for joining us today. It's great to have you in.
I'm thrilled to be here.
Okay, Kate, so let's start from the beginning. Food Rescue, what is it?
Food Rescue US is a national nonprofit that uses an app technology to engage people who want to do something nice for their community, to have the opportunity to shop literally in our app to find matched food rescues between a business that wants to donate rather than waste and a nonprofit agency, low-income housing, mutual aid organization. We basically get food to people who know what to do with it, how to get it out into the community. So Food Rescue US DC was founded in 2016, and we work in DC, Northern Virginia, parts of Maryland, and we're just every day, actually 364 days a year. I do think maybe we don't have a rescue on Christmas Day, but otherwise we have volunteers out there who are literally picking up food and transporting it sometimes 5 minutes away, sometimes 15 or 20 minutes away. And we have a new program where you have bikers who are out there doing rescues, which is very exciting.
Oh, that is super exciting.
Our mission is both to assist the food insecure, but also to help the environment because,
well, we're talking food waste.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's kind of talk about that. So we have the broad umbrella of it, but let's get a little nitty-gritty in it. So let's talk about where you're picking up the food from. Who are these partners? How do you acquire them? And how do you create relationships with them?
We do a great deal of work with corporate cafeterias because prepared food, which by the way is protected, all food is protected by the Food Donation Improvement Act of 2022 and the Bill Emerson Good Samaritan Food Donation Program of 1996, which is kind of background, but it's important.
No, it's important because a lot of, I will interject this because over the years I've heard from people, especially in the restaurant industry or hotel industry, who are not as well versed on the legalities of it, that they can't give food away because they would be responsible if somebody got sick or something like that, right?
If they're donating in good faith, which they are. And we have checks and balances because our volunteers give up their time to go pick up. The chefs are pleased to pass the food on, and the agency has skilled people who can properly serve it. So it's all taken care of.
That's all taken care of.
But so I mentioned the corporate cafeterias because I think our program, one of the reasons it really fills a niche here in the DMV is because we kind of are the prepared food folks. Our volunteers are able to quickly adapt, pick up food, trays, pans of food. And so we'll have Sodexo or restaurant associates. Once we get one of these larger food providers, for example, National Geographic was one of our very first food rescues.
Because I think it's good to explain it because people are like, what do you mean cafeterias? Most people not a lot of people have cafeterias in their offices, but some of these larger organizations do. So what are they able to give you, or how do they give you?
We are not able to accept food that has been set out for service. So it's always food that has been held back, properly stored, temperature controlled when they pass it off. But we, at the World Bank, another example, they have varied food, very culturally appropriate to all the people who work there. And at the end of their cafeteria service, food that has not been set out, they pack away. And we come on Wednesdays and Fridays to to the World Bank.
Right.
So and we work with Boeing. We work out at in Tyson's Corner with several of the businesses out there at the Hilton headquarters. It's just, and the good news is once you engage with an organization like Flick Hospitality or Sodexo, they will refer us to other accounts that they have in the DMV, and they are able to say, this has been working for us, you should try it. So that's one area. We do farmers markets. We are always at the DuPont Circle Farmers Market, which I think is the biggest in the DMV, T-shirted up, about 8 people running around to secure whatever food can be donated. A lot of the farmers will come.
It's kind of like gleaning, right? You're just sort of gleaning what's left, but it's not, I hate to say it like this, but it's not the dregs. Like it's still amazing food.
Because a lot of these farmers are coming from West Virginia or Pennsylvania, and they don't necessarily want to put beautiful lettuce that might start to wilt back on their truck and go back. Sometimes they do for their animals, but some of our donors actually know that we're going to be there to glean because we're reliable. When we say we're coming, we come.
Okay.
And so they'll actually sometimes bring surplus food if they have extra corn or whatever. They don't even think they're putting it out for sale, but they know that our food rescue program can come and glean it and pick it up. So we have about 4 or 5 different nonprofits that come to the DuPont market at closing when we've amassed all that food. And our captain, Christina, knows exactly who gets what. It's like clockwork.
That's amazing. Okay, so now now we've got where the food comes from, but now where the food is going. So how did those partnerships get created, and how are you able to fill those needs?
Well, it's a lot of word of mouth. In the beginning, it was searching out, Googling soup kitchens, shelters, the obvious places. What I think is really special about our program is in addition to working with places that are very well known, like Bread for the City, Martha's Table, DC Central Kitchen.
Sure.
We also work with DC Housing Authority buildings, low-income seniors residing there. We work with a Charlie's Place, Everybody Home on the Hill. We work with just churches, synagogues. We kind of listen to see where there's a need, and people seek us out and register in the app, and we do our very best to make matches. I'll be honest, we haven't been able to accommodate every inquiry because it's a lot. There's a lot of need out there.
Amazing.
But a lot has to do with proximity. If a donor comes into a location where we have not been able yet to serve a nonprofit, because we always like to keep our rescues probably 15, 20 minutes. We don't want food in the car. We want it to get there quickly to keep it safe. So I would not tend to put a rescue 45 minutes away. It would probably also be harder for a volunteer to be able to step up to. So a lot of this is a little bit of luck, where you're located, what type of food you need. Some places, they'll do a distribution on the second and fourth Thursday of the month. So we have to kind of keep that in mind. Other places are open, every day and have a lot more flexibility of what they can take in. And really quickly, we know to bring raw foods to places that have chefs to prepare it.
Sure, like DC Central Kitchen.
And the Central Union Mission.
Sure.
And then the food that's prepackaged or pans of food can go to organizations that are more able to kind of serve it up.
Right, like scoop and serve.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. All right, we're going to get back to you at the end of the show because I want to talk a little bit about how the volunteering works. Okay? But now I'm going to go over to Colleen. Hi.
Hi, how are you?
You and I go way back.
We do.
We know each other longer than we should. So how did you get, because you were in the restaurant industry.
Yes.
I think you worked with my son, Sam.
I did for a long time.
Lucky you.
Yeah.
So tell me how you changed sides.
I had always had an interest in preventing food waste and kind of bridging that gap between those who didn't have enough to eat in the city and not only the education that we have in restaurants, but the waste that we would see, not necessarily on an everyday scale, but through events. I've worked in some places that we would have massive events, massive buyouts, and people had to hit their minimum, and so they ordered all this beautiful food and it was made, and then they just didn't eat it. And we would try and get people to take boxes to go. We'd give it to the staff, but there's only so much that we can do. And rack my brain, and this was before Kate had started in 2016, and much like a lot of different people, I would call places and they were like, oh, was it touched by human hands? And I said, well, yes, it was.
It was me.
And they're like, well, we can't take it. And I was like, oh, man.
No, see, that's where you said no.
I didn't have the education to be like, I guess you're right. You're telling you're telling me, so I guess this is how it is. And so fast forward a few years, I had managed a few different restaurants, and I had worked at a few different places where we were able to find places to donate pastries at the end of the night. But it wasn't until during COVID, I had started a catering company in New Jersey, and I got really into food insecurity and making and kind of using all of these local vegetables and trying to kind of integrate that into my menu. And I started looking at places where I could volunteer and work for mobile food markets up in the New Jersey area, which is where I was staying with my family. And I was searching down here, and I came across an Instagram post from Kate asking for help, and so I applied, and she happily hired me.
Okay.
So that's how I maybe kind of brought all of our worlds together. So coming from a restaurant, Kate hadn't been able to...
plus the contacts that you would have down here, right? Since, you're coming from a totally good intentions, totally different point of view, but, when you don't know the people in the industry and to talk industry speak, that bridging that gap of communication can sometimes be hard.
Yeah, and kind of getting the foot in the door for these events that would happen in hotels and in restaurants where, we've done these, where we're trying to get more into that so we can rescue from places that may have a buffet but has food left over and they're not sure what to do with it.
Right.
It's kind of where we step in and where we can really partner with restaurants where we might not be able to otherwise, because restaurants don't tend to have a lot of waste that we would pick up, like a corporate cafeteria or a grocery store or a farmer's market.
Right. I think you're saying something that's really important. I think I know for a fact, people think that there is just sort of this surplus of food at restaurants, that at the end of the night, there's all these, it's just leftover, right? But, and Matt can talk about this later. I mean, the math of that doesn't work. You don't want a lot of leftovers. You want to serve all your food. So you're not doing a good job in the kitchen if there's a lot of leftover food at night.
Absolutely. I remember for one of the first times, I went with Kate, there was, bagels and all those things. In my mind, I've run kitchens before, and I was like, has something happened? Like, where's all this food coming from? Because from a restaurant, the game is not to hold.
I mean, I think we've heard this enough through the pandemic, but razor thin margins is how a restaurant is supposed to successfully run, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, and so it was nice to kind of get into this little world where with Food Rescue we could start to kind of make partnerships with restaurants, and that's kind of how we came to our Family Meal for Migrants program.
Right. So let's talk about that. Yeah. Family Meal for Migrants? What is the program? How did it begin?
We were approached probably in January or February of this year from a woman named Jessica, who is one of the core members of Migrant Solidarity Mutual Aid.
Okay.
Which is an organization, a nonprofit of volunteers who come together to help those seeking asylum here in DMV. And she came to us looking for more food, and we had a meeting with her, we had a call, we kind of talked through what they were looking for, what they needed. There's a lot of people in need, and the programs that they had, the food that they had wasn't enough for what they needed. And wasn't always culturally appropriate, and it was some things were over processed.
Right, you weren't meeting people where they were.
Exactly. And we were trying to find a way to help. And so, much like Kate was just saying, we make matches as best we can. So we were going through our different weekly schedules saying, where can we funnel food your way? How can we help? And Kate asked, how can restaurants get involved, since we're trying to, get more restaurants on board with what we're doing. And at first, my mind was like, razor thin margins, not happening.
Right. Well, plus, listen, after the pandemic or during the pandemic, like asking restaurants, I mean, pre-pandemic, Matt, I know you can speak to this. Restaurants get asked for everything. Oh, can we get a gift? It's a charity. Can we get $100 gift card? Come do our event. Can you do that? Like, do this for free. And even, I can go down such a rabbit hole on that, but even the, I went to a restaurant and I had to wait and they didn't give me anything for free. Like, there's all these things built around restaurants that they are supposed to give shit for free. Do you know what I mean? And I think during the pandemic, people are finally like, no, we can't. Like, it's a business. And there's not enough money built in there to make that work.
Absolutely. And running a restaurant during COVID, I mean, it was, I used to think it was like, it's a hurdle being in front of you every single day, and the hurdle is different every single day. And it's one of those things where it's like, I can't do everything you're asking me to do. I wish that I could, because I know that you're so excited to be back here with us, but there's only so much we can do. And so as we were talking, it occurred to me, I was like, how can we get food that is culturally appropriate and would be amazing? I was like, family meal. I've been lucky enough to work in a lot of restaurants where we're provided family meal, which is something where the kitchen team, while they're prepping, also makes food for us as a team, front of house, back house, to come together before a shift and sit down with one another and enjoy a meal before the doors open. And that usually consists of a salad, some rice, some beans, some chicken, maybe some pasta, things that they have that is a little bit it's less money for them to buy in bulk from the restaurant. That they may not necessarily be using, or, different trimmings from things they're using, from their prep. And I started thinking, I was like, what if we just asked restaurants to make a little more? I'm not asking, we're not going to ask you to feed 1,000 people.
Right.
But maybe 50 to 100 on, once a week or once a month or something like that. So this idea kind of started going, and I was going back and forth with Kate. I was like, do you think this will work?
Don't let her brain jump. I give full credit to Colleen for this idea.
And then I asked a few of my old restaurant owners. I sat with them. I was like, tell me all the ways someone's going to tell me. Absolutely not. We're not doing this. And we talked it through, and I was like, because there was a million different ways that we could have gone about it. And at the end of the day, we're just like, all someone can say is no.
Right.
You know, and that's all I can say is no. And lucky, a lot of people said yes.
Okay.
So with our partnership with the Restaurant Association of the
Metropolitan Washington. Yes.
We have been able to get a lot of interest in helping, and whether that's once a week, whether that's once a month, maybe that's just one time, and please come back to me in the fall, maybe I can help out some more. We've had some restaurants do a like a company-wide clothing drive. And any way that they, you know, people come to us and they say, I just want to help in any way that I can, please just.
I mean, it's everybody's so generous.
And the
it speaks it speaks volumes of the industry in the city. I mean, they're amazing.
And it's a way for them, for a restaurant to give back in a way that they might not be able to otherwise. And so it's been a really nice and important.
Okay, so how did you hook up with Alex?
Alex is a volunteer for, and one of the core volunteers with Jessica at Migrant Solidarity Mutual Aid.
Yes.
And so we met on our first Family Meal for Migrants donation from Bond 45 in the National Harbor.
Wow.
And he was one of the volunteers, and so we kind of started talking, and we're both really excited about this program, and
I couldn't believe it. I thought Colleen's idea was brilliant.
It's brilliant.
I think I'm originally from El Paso, Texas, so I know the burden that migration can put onto a city. And with 11,600 immigrants being bused to the city, we needed help from the city, but at the same time, we needed the city just to help. There weren't really any programs available at that time. So there's OMS, there's Homeland Security, there were shelters in the city. But the idea of, I think we all know, in the restaurant industry, there's a lot of Latinos and there's a lot of Latino immigrants, right? I think the Family Meal Plan recognizes that in a very honest way. And what it does is it allows Latinos working in the restaurant industry the opportunity to give back to their community. And I hadn't seen anything like that. So, like, she's humble about it. Kate's pointing out how humble Colleen, but like the idea is brilliant.
Yay! Okay, let's do Colleen. Yay, Colleen!
It's so lovely.
Well, it is amazing, and I love it, and I'm glad that we have this opportunity to talk about it. But can we talk more about the organization and how it was formed, and what the initial role was, and how it's all being integrated?
Sure, absolutely. So. Migrant Solidarity Mutual Aid, I think, was formed originally just out of need, right? So meeting the migrants being bused in DC, Union Station, in front of the Vice President's house.
Sure. So it's super recent. It's in the last what?
They just had their year anniversary a week ago. So it's really people just figuring things out on the fly, right? So one of the great things a lot of great things about DC, but a lot of immigration lawyers in DC, right? So,
there's a lot of doers too.
100%. So that's an amazing asset. But there wasn't a huge overlap with the restaurant industry. There wasn't a huge overlap. With Catholic Charities, but the restaurant industry is just positioned in such a unique place, especially for the migrant crisis right now. You cannot, this is a point I keep making, but you can't separate, in the United States, you can't separate food from Latino immigrants. So from the farm to processing plants, to restaurants, to wine bars, we are very visible in this area, and we hold a little bit of power in this area. And having the ability to really take advantage of that was, I think, has been a huge support for Migrant Solidarity, maybe more than Food Rescue understands. But I think actually the majority of the meals they're getting right now, they're not being sponsored by Homeland Security or by OMS. I think it's coming from Food Rescue or from people who started with Food Rescue.
Wow. But how does that look to you as one of the volunteers? How is that executed?
Super easy. So I would ask anyone to sign up and volunteer. Essentially, we get the name of a restaurant that wants to contribute a family meal for migrants meal. We pick it up at the restaurant. For me, it's been made like 4 or 5 o'clock. Then we drive to one of the shelters. There are 3 shelters, active shelters right now. I think for a good reason, we're a little bit quiet about where the locations are, but they're operated by Insecurity, they're operated by OMS. and we distribute there. So really, we're augmenting. They are getting food, but we are augmenting it. Last week there was like some spoilage in the food that not Food Rescue, but what Food Rescue was able to do is, they didn't.
It was like backup.
But it wasn't backup because that's what they had to eat for that period of time. But also what it does is it lets them know that lets the migrants know that they have support in the city, right? There's people. It's a little bit of a hopeless time right now, right? New York City is about to declare that they're no longer a sanctuary city.
I know.
I've been super impressed with Mayor Bowser. Actually, we're a city of about 500,000. New York City's 9 million approximately, and we were receiving as many migrants as them from Texas. So the fact that Mayor Bowser was able to do everything she's done, I'm super impressed by it. I don't know if that answers your question.
No. You're telling me a lot of really important information because it's a very convoluted issue. It's complicated. It's convoluted. I think most people in this area, and listen, probably in New York, I mean, across the country, most people want to help. People are escaping for a reason.
Correct.
And they want to come and start their lives. I mean, everybody just wants to live their lives and live as well as they can for themselves and their family. So how do we help ease that burden, right?
Sure. So first of all, I completely agree with you. For the vast majority of migrants coming to this country, they're coming for the same reason that our parents, our grandparents, our great-grandparents came to this country, the same intentions. And that's never going to change, right? So we have outdated laws right now. We do need to make some changes, but the thing that anyone could. So Harvey Milk was a civil rights case.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
San Francisco.
Right, and he put he had this brilliant idea of coming out, right, to let your friends, family, coworkers know that you support, right, this agenda. So I think the best way that you can help immigration reform in this country right now is to make a public statement of support. Tell your friends, to tell your family that we in fact support immigration reform. However it looks to you, immigration reform looks differently to everyone, right? But however it applies to you seems making that statement, letting people know, letting politicians know that we care about this. I think that's the best step. Then sign up with Food Rescue.
Right? He's like, let me bring it back. Let me bring it back. It's okay.
And then sign up with Migrant Solidarity. Washington Hebrew congregation is getting a little more involved.
Good.
And then all the different Catholic charities in the area. But also, figure it out. If you see something lacking and you can help out,
Well, like Kate said, I mean, it's not just food. Like somebody did a coat drive or a clothing drive. I mean, I love that there's layers to it. I'm going to head over to Matt for a second. Chef Matt Adler from Caruso's, and you know him from a variety of restaurants in the DC area. Matt, I mean, you've been involved with World Central Kitchen, with Jose, and you've always been incredibly involved in the community. So how did you find out about Food Rescue? I mean, I'm sure you heard it on one of my many shows, but prior to that, how did you get involved?
So Alex and I worked together for a long time. We met in the beginning of COVID. We were both working with World Central Kitchen at Nats Park. And then he actually worked as a host at Caruso's for a long time as well. So I think he reached out to me initially about this, connected me with Colleen, who's also a colleague, worked with NRG for a long time.
Because you also worked with Sam.
Sam, yeah. So we, I heard about the program. I was like, of course, my natural inclination as a chef is I want to feed people, and I do that in my restaurants every night. But to be able to do that, for somebody who's paying, $55 per person for their pasta and their dessert and their cocktail, but to be able to do that for somebody who, really needs it, who really needs a great meal, that's so much more impactful.
And how do you execute it is it just at Caruso's? Is it throughout NRG? Like, how are you working with Food Rescue and this specific program to be effective?
So at Caruso's, I think we did it last month for the first time. We basically, we made 5 or 6 different pans of baked ziti, and we prepared a salad. We got some bread together. Alex and Colleen came and picked it up, and they brought it where it needed to go. It was a really seamless process. We were able to use our buying power and reach out to some of our purveyors who could donate some of the food, so we didn't have to shoulder.
That's what I was going to ask. Like, that makes so much sense to me, that it's easy to sort of say, Caruso's is a part of Neighborhood Restaurant Group. It's 20 plus restaurants. Yeah. It seems like you have a lot of buying power.
Yeah, for sure. Just having been a chef in DC for so long and working with so many different businesses, it's easy enough to be able to pull together enough resources to do this. And it's not, it's not crazy expensive. We're talking about pasta and bread and salad, and the cost for the restaurant is minimal, but the impact is pretty great. So it's worth the time and the effort to do it.
And is this something that you can sort of get back of the house, in front of the house? Like, is it part of a community program for the people in the restaurant? Like, you worked in a restaurant, you called him, you told him what you were doing, but I would hate that if I were working in a restaurant and my restaurant was involved in something like this, that I didn't know about it, right? So, like, is there a way of, like, making it bigger for everybody who's working for you so that they know and can come up with ideas or, get involved?
For sure. I think we need to get a little bit further down the road with it, but anytime we do work like this, everybody's excited. Everybody wants to be a part of it. Because again, the day-to-day in a restaurant sometimes is a little monotonous, a little challenging. So when stuff like this comes up,
that is not what your Instagram and Twitter sounds like. There is nothing about following Matt Adler on social media that sounds monotonous or boring. But anyway.
But it's, when stuff like this comes up, people want to get involved in it because it is exciting. And people want to give back. For whatever reason, the restaurant industry always wants to help the community.
Well, I think you said it best. You know how to feed people. And actually, I'll never forget, before World Central Kitchen was developed, but that was initially when Jose was in Haiti, right, where they started the program, which was totally not what it is today. And when he went to Houston, when there was that terrible hurricane there, and I remember seeing him, he was talking on something, and he's like, I'm a chef, I know how to feed people. And I mean, now he says it all the time, but I remember seeing it then, and I was like, oh, I see. He was in the grocery store, like throwing stuff in. And I was like, right. It's such a no-brainer, instead of like all the red tape. And it's not that FEMA or Homeland Security, it's not that people don't have good intentions, but they're not in the food and beverage industry. So they don't know some things, I feel like.
And they're, we are inherently going to make delicious food. And that might not necessarily be the same thing if it's through the Red Cross or somebody where, if we don't make good food in our restaurants, people don't come. So we do that naturally.
Okay. Agreed. So let's talk about how this all works. Like, you made a very clear point of meeting people where they are with the kind of food that they're serving. So how do you communicate with a Chef Matt, and how do you and Alex talk about the kind of things that we want to bring to the migrant community to make them feel safe at home through food?
Yeah, I think it's in every interaction I have, especially when I'm talking to chefs first about this program, it's however you and your team best operate, whatever makes the most sense for you, that makes the most sense for us. Food is love. And this is one of our very resounding themes here at Food Rescue. It's no matter what you make, you're going to do it with love. And you have this mission, and you do it every day. When you have this very, it's mission driven. You're helping people. You know that it's making a difference, not only in someone's day, but someone's week.
Right.
And so it's always a conversation where it's like, how can we best help? And that's where Alex comes in, which is like, boots on the ground. How can we help? When it's a conversation with Chef Adler and everyone else, it's like, what makes the most sense for you? Is it pasta? Is it rice? Is it chicken? What is easiest? Because homemade food is better than anything you're going to get. So it's more of like, I'm not going to ask you to make me, can I please have your $20 chicken from your menu, and I need 40 of them.
Thank you.
it's always a conversation, and I'm always going to be open to whatever anyone has an idea. If they're excited about something.
But when the program is active, so food rescue works because of volunteers who take from one and give to another. Is that basically is that's how it's working in this one? Is it the same execution?
It's slightly different in that it's never so with these family meals are not open to our volunteer base necessarily because they're executed differently. It's going directly from Alex is usually one to pick up, or there's a few other volunteers who are able to pick up, and then they serve the food directly to the
3 places.
The 3 places.
Right.
Yeah, they're setting up table, and people are coming with their plates, and they're serving.
Okay.
And so it's just slightly different because it's a slightly different model than sometimes we're picking up 40 wrapped sandwiches or lunch boxes or things or raw foods, or this is made specifically for this community. And then it's the interactions with these communities and the 3 different places directly. And
well, I was going to ask Alex, is when you pick up the food and you deliver, are you also hanging out, talking to people? Like, I'd love to hear a little bit about the experience.
Yeah, for sure. So a lot of moms, a lot of kids, right? And to kind of double down on what Matt and Colleen said is that a nutritious meal is going to keep someone alive, right? But a delicious meal, that gives people hope and lets people know that there are people who genuinely care about you in this community. And that is the response I get. The baked ziti went over so well.
I'll do it against it.
Fantastic, because some of the 12-year-olds, some of the younger teens are going to be teens. Some of them calling me baked ziti now.
Oh, I love
not
it.
The worst thing.
Well, that's just it. I can tell you that.
That's
I did it to
hysterical.
myself. So that interaction, I mean, really we're in a sense of these people don't know what's happening.
Sure.
Right? And any normality we can bring to them, any sense of hope we can give to them. And food does that. Like a delicious meal is going to touch your heart in a place that political opinion is never going to touch your heart.
Right.
And they're getting nutritious meals, and that's fantastic. But then also they're getting some of the best pasta in the city, some of the best food in the city, and it makes a difference. And I know it seems like a small thing, but
no, it does not seem like a small thing to me.
It doesn't seem like a small thing to me either. I see their faces. And you start to build relationships with them after a couple of weeks.
And then the hope from there is that, is there an elevated hope that they can find jobs, find housing, move next? I know that's probably broader than your organization.
But it's a good question. It's very necessary. One of the things that just sort of has happened, I would imagine organically within any migrant group in America, but specifically Latinos, is the groups. One person will get a job somewhere and say, "Hey, listen, I'm going to talk to the boss. I know this great worker," and so on and so on and so on. And getting these migrants any connection to that community, any connection to the pre-existing Latino American community is a huge step in them being able to survive here in the United States and really to do what every other migrant immigrant group has done, participate, contribute.
Well, there's a lot of roles in the restaurant industry that need to be filled. The hope is that can be, a place where, a symbiotic relationship there.
I would imagine it is. I'm not sure what it is about the restaurant industry that's just feeding people, but I think that attitude is reflected by chefs like Anthony Bourdain, by chefs like Matt Adler, by managers like Colleen, that they're working shoulder to shoulder with Latino immigrants their majority of their career. And they're not going to overlook someone who they work with and they're friends with. They're going to want to know their history. They're going to value that history. They're going to recognize those experiences are valuable. And I think Also, you have those attitudes in construction, you have those attitudes in childcare. But I do think the restaurant industry, for whatever reason, just is filled with a lot of good people and who want to give back.
Agreed.
Yeah, I mean, you don't. The thing with restaurants is you don't need all this education to get involved in it. Anybody can work in a restaurant if they're, if they care about what they do. They show up to work on time, they work hard, they care about people, they care about their job. You can succeed, and you can excel, and you can do well. And I mean, in a matter of years, you can start at entry level, and you can work your way up really to the top.
And have your own restaurant.
I mean, restaurant. If you work, you can be in charge. You can be a general manager. You can make lots of money again without like the burden of having to go through education. My sister jokes. She has I think like 8 or 9 years of higher education, and I have 2 years because I went to culinary school. But I've been able to have a higher salary in my career because I pursued a different field.
This sounds like sibling rivalry, but go ahead.
But that's like anybody can do it. Anybody can start in a restaurant again as a busboy, a prep cook, a dishwasher, and they can work their way up in no time, which is great.
I know it's a tale as old as time that you hear in the industry of so many people who start at the absolute. I hate to say bottom because that sort of negates it, but you have to start somewhere,
for sure.
And so hopefully. I'm hopeful with that, with the restaurant industry. Kate, I want to bring it back to you because one of the things we haven't really discussed is the volunteer.
Yeah.
And how the volunteer participates actively in picking up that food and getting it to that location.
Well, we have probably at any one time about 400 or so volunteers whose names we recognize who are out there doing the work in the past 90 days, several months. And many of them have been with us from the very beginning. We have an opportunity for volunteers to adopt rescues. Janet on Wednesdays will pick up at the World Bank and drop it off at Potomac Senior Housing. And she develops one of my favorite things. I always say we have a dual mission, but we have one more. It's food waste, food insecurity, but then it's building community. And this is a prime example of it as well. But the volunteers will actually develop kind of sidebar relationships with the people that they're bringing the food to. They become friendly with the donors. And when someone adopts a rescue, they'll feed us information. It's really a beautiful thing. But I mean, we do have, I also like to say that I have had many reports of volunteers who might have lived in DC for 10 years or so, but have never really gone into Anacostia across the river, and then they have a reason to because they're doing a food rescue, and they report back, that was really amazing, some really lovely parts of the city down there. It was really great to be able to have that opportunity to give back. And quickly, during COVID, a lot of people thought, boy, I bet you guys had a rough time with it. But in fact, with so many people working from home and wanting to do something, and you could have low contact.
No, I would bet now it might be harder because people are back to work.
I was a little worried. The drop-off wasn't as significant as we thought. So we're still doing okay. And we're grateful that through the Migrant Solidarity Mutual Aid, they do their own rescues. So that doesn't, we would be, and by the way.
So you're not cannibalizing yourself.
They're not. But we also, whenever possible, do typical food rescue to Alex and his group when we can find Leon Bakery, there's opportunities to do the surplus food that we come across that we can get in addition to the program that Colleen spearheads.
I love that.
So, but the volunteer experience, I mean, it's, it's usually by the time you leave your home and do the rescue and get back, it's under an hour.
And you've expanded because it wasn't in Maryland before.
There are other food rescue programs in Maryland, so I wanted to kind of tiptoe to see, not to overreach. But like when we have Levan Bakery that then opens in Bethesda, we have Call Your Mother Deli that opens in Bethesda, and there's room enough. I always say there's no need to be competitive in this field because there's plenty of food out there. We just need to kind of know. If a grocery store is being gleaned by the Capital Area Food Bank, that's like, oh, good, okay, let's move on because that's being taken care of. And I think it's the same thing when it comes to, our growth. We go where it makes sense, but I think it's a pretty dynamite volunteer opportunity.
Just walk me through it. How do you just download the app? I mean, for people who don't know, how does it work?
Super easy.
Okay.
So foodrescue.us is our website, our main website. We have a web page, the DC program, which I like to direct people to because it's more about what we do down here. But The app is a web-based app. It's not in the App Store or on Google Play, but if you go to foodrescue.us, you can either work it on your computer or if you open it on your phone, there's an opportunity to save it to your home screen, and then it is effectively an app like any other app. And every night at 6 o'clock, if there are rescues that are unclaimed for the next day, an email. We try not to do a lot of push notifications, so we don't,
overwhelm people.
Overdo it. So, but at 6 o'clock, if there are rescues for the next day, people can. We call attention to them to see if we can get them covered.
Okay.
And then in the morning, Colleen and I strategize. A beautiful day is when there's nothing to cover, because then we can focus on growing the program and doing the work. But then if we have rescues open, because once we partner with a business, we don't let them down. We don't leave them with pans of food that they're,
Right, you're coming to get it.
We're getting it. So it's her getting it or I'm getting it. Our core volunteers, we do reach out. We know so many people very well by now that we know, normally John can do that rescue. Let's give him a quick text, see if he can cover it. We make it happen. So, but yes, so download the app and you can claim one rescue. You can adopt a rescue. If you adopt a rescue and then you have a friend coming to town that Wednesday, you can unclaim for just that day, and then it opens it up so that other people have the opportunity.
Well, here's the thing. I love that you're trying to make it as easy as possible for the volunteers, but I'm kind of like, that's the point. I met so many of the volunteers when I was at the event last year. And they love being able to do something, So can we talk about the event while we wrap up? Let's talk about the event this year, September 21st.
September 21st.
Very exciting.
We're thrilled to have Nycci as our MC again this year.
Which I love. Yes.
Same place, Gallery O on H.
Which is such a cool space.
It's really
It's
cool.
a great
It's
space.
a very cool space.
Earlier in the year,
it was a little chilly last October.
I know. It's okay.
Cold front.
Right. You never know. This year it could be 80, it could be 90 degrees. It's always a lose-lose when it comes to the weather and events.
Exactly. We have some great restaurants on board, including Chris's Groceries.
Oh, yay.
There with us.
Apparently he's bringing baked ziti. That's what I hear. I hear he's serving baked ziti. Right.
Something delicious.
Okay.
We have live jazz. We have Atlas Brewworks is making us a beer from rescued bread from Tate Bakery, which is a partner we just.
Oh, that's
started.
amazing! How exciting!
So we're super excited about that. Yeah. It's going to be great. We have great silent auction. We have a cooking demo from two of our advisory council members.
Great.
Ryan Gordon and Shona Banerjee, we're super excited about. It's just gonna be
so last year the cooking demo was really terrific because it showed how to reuse food. Because I think that's a lot of people are just confused by it. They're like, but this is already done. And she was able to be like, no, you can take this and make it something else. If you're a chef, that's a no-brainer. But for a lot of people, if you come home with leftovers, and let's say you had chicken parmesan and baked ziti, some people would be like, okay, I guess I'm having chicken parmesan and baked ziti. But you can get creative and do other things. And I think knowing how to recycle food in that capacity is great education.
Yeah, I think also if you're a part of a CSA and you have something that in your basket that you normally wouldn't know what to do with, you put an eggplant in front of me and be like, I have no idea.
Yeah, eggplant's always the tricky one.
Eggplant parmesan, hello, or rollatini. Right.
But it's one of those things where you're just you don't always have those ideas in your arsenal, and so having Shorna, you can do this with.
Right. You
can make a chutney out of anything. Yeah. You can make, and with Ryan, it's you can make, he had a rice dish. You can do anything.
Right. Okay, so mark your calendars.
Yes.
September 21st. Okay.
Tickets are live.
Yeah, and I guess foodrescue.us, you'd find the DC page, and tickets are available through that.
Okay, great. Yeah. Okay, good. All right. Tell everybody where they can find you one more time.
My email is kate@foodrescue.us. Colleen and I are, and Colleen Gillespie at foodrescue.us. It's my phone number is at the end of every pickup and drop off in the app. So I always answer phone calls no matter what the area code is.
Okay. Thank God your phone didn't ring while you were on air.
It did once, but I ignored it.
Okay.
So hopefully there's not an issue.
Okay.
But so you can reach out to us with any questions. Of course, by zip code, if you sign up in the app, you will be into the DMV, the DC program, based upon what you enter as your zip code. So we will see you, and Colleen gets out an email every day to our new volunteers with a welcome. So probably the easiest way if you want to become involved. And restaurants, businesses can sign up through the website. Right now, an agency has to reach out to us directly, or we reach out to them. But both volunteers and food donors can sign up directly in the app, and then we'll capture their information and be in touch.
Amazing. Okay, Alex, where do we find you?
Instagram, Alex and Charles, if you want on Instagram.
Okay, excellent. And the organization?
Absolutely. Migrant Solidarity Mutual Aid also have a great Instagram page, website. I think they have a Twitter handle as well.
Okay, for the moment, X? It's called X?
Absolutely correct. Absolutely.
I don't know. We'll all off in a second. Okay. Chef Adler.
Crusoe's Grocery. We have one in Southeast Washington, D.C., and one in Pike and Rose in Rockville, Maryland.
And where can we follow you and all your rants on social media?
At Adler81 on Instagram and Matt Adler81 on Twitter.
Excellent.
X.
Okay, great.
Yeah, we're on Instagram and Facebook.
All the things,
all
too.
the things.
Excellent.
You'll
All right.
find
Well,
us.
thank you all for joining me today. Just give me a second while I wrap up. Everything you heard here today, you can find on the listareyouwantit.com, the online newszine that tells you everything that's happening in the DC metro area. Obviously, if you are looking for ways to volunteer, you have heard a lot of ways to get involved. Today, there are a lot of people in need, and if you have the means, then you should be able to help. Follow me at NYCCI, NELLIS, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, X, whatever that is. Please subscribe on YouTube and ask me questions anytime. If there's anything that you heard here today that you want to know more about, just ping me and I'll get you an answer. So much going on in the world, but especially in the DC area. Don't be shy. Get out and eat, and be safe out there. Have a delicious week.
Produced by Heartcast Media.